Welcome. Would you stand with us as we sing today?
This is how I know I am yours. If my heart should condemn me, your truth is so much more. This is how I know I'm secure, that even though I keep falling, your love for me endures. In the light of your grace, you end my darkness. In the light of your grace, my burdens lose their weight. In the light of your grace, you lift my head up. In the light of your grace, my sin is washed away. This is how I know you're my Lord, that in my weakness you give me the strength to be restored. This is how I know I'm adored, that when I'm lost in my feelings, you tell me I am yours. In the light of your grace, you end my darkness. In the light of your grace, my burdens lose their weight. In the light of your grace, you lift my head up. In the light of your grace, my sin is washed away. Head out of water, walk on the waves. This is how I know I am yours.
This is how I know.
This is how I know I'm secure.
This is how I know.
This is how I know you're my Lord.
This is how I know.
This is how I know I'm adored. In the light of your grace, you end my darkness. In the light of your grace, my burdens lose their weight. In the light of your grace, you lift my head up. In the light of your grace, my sin is washed away. Head out of water, head out of water, walk on the waves, walk on the waves. Weight turns to wonder, weight turns to wonder. In the light of your grace,
Thanks for being here with us today. We're really excited to sing another song with you. Clap along, dance along with us. It's a fun one.
God, I'm on my knees again. God, I'm begging, please again. I need you. Oh, I need you. Walking down these desert roads, water for my thirsty soul. I need you. Oh, I need you. Your forgiveness is like sweet, sweet honey on my lips. It's like the sound of a symphony to my ears. It's like holy water on my skin. Dead man walking, slave to sin. I won't know about being born like holy water. Your forgiveness is like sweet, sweet honey on my lips. It's like the sound of a symphony to my ears. It's like holy water on my skin. It's like holy water on my skin. It's like holy water.
I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. And then you came along and put me back together. And every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. And I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Oh, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. The God of the mountain is the God of the valley. And there's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing thank you that you meet us here. You take our ashes, you make them beautiful. And the hard things that we brought with us today, that you're going to work them all together for good. We love you. Amen.
Well, good morning again. Welcome to WestWay Christian Church. If we haven't met, I'm John, and I'm one of the pastors here, and I'm really glad that you're here with us today. If this is your first time, we're especially thankful that you're here with us. There are lots of ways that we can connect with you. The easiest way is if you haven't already filled out one of the white cards at the Welcome Center, we just invite you to do that. You can also text the word guest to the number that'll be on the screen, or if you want prayer requests, you can request prayers that way. If you'd like to get connected through serving, you can just text the word serve to that same number, and someone from our staff will reach out to you and connect with you so that we can help you get connected and participating in what we're doing here at our church. One thing I want to just remind you of, next Sunday is Next Steps. So if you are new, if you've been here for a while and you have no idea what WestWay is about, Next Steps is a great way for you to do that. Jen Dillinger is our Next Steps team lead, and she'll be out in the lobby ready to help you sign up today to participate in that. There is a meal included, childcare, if that's something that you need. It takes about 2 hours, and we just want to talk about the things that God's doing here at WestWay Christian Church. So if you are pretty new here, you probably noticed something over the past several weeks. Our preaching rotation has changed a little bit. You've seen Cody, or one of our other pastors, up here a little bit more than myself. And you should know that that's 100% intentional during the summertime. I had lunch with a friend of mine from here a couple weeks ago, and we were kind of talking about going into this season of what summer looks like at WestWay Christian Church and how I tend to preach a little bit less. And he said, yeah, I kind of hear like second and third hand, what's going on with John? Is he going somewhere else? Like, what's happening? You're stuck with me. I've been here for 5 years. I have zero intentions of going anywhere. But this is really intentional. Each summer, what I do is I deliberately take time away from my main role here, and I work on our fall series. This year, we're going to be going through the book of Romans, and I'm really excited about that. So this is an opportunity, summer's an opportunity for me to step away from what I normally do and really devote a lot of time to preparing for that. It's also good for our other pastors to help them develop skills outside of their normal primary role and responsibility. And I'm excited about the opportunity for them to do that. It's good for you as our church body because you get to hear voices other than me. I know that by the end of a long series where I've taught, I know I'm sick and tired of hearing my voice, and my guess is you're sick and tired of hearing my voice. So it's a nice transition for someone else to be able to speak and learn that we can be discipled from other people. And last but not least, it's good for our church. I think it's good for our church for two reasons. The first of which is our goal here at WestWay is to not make disciples of pastors. Does that make sense? We don't want to make disciples of pastors. In 1 Corinthians, Paul addresses this particular issue in the very first chapter of 1 Corinthians. He's saying, there are some of you who are saying, well, I'm of Barnabas, I'm of Paul, I'm of this person, and we're not making disciples of pastors here, we're making disciples of Jesus Christ. But then the second thing that this is really good for us is it allows us flexibility in what we do throughout the summer. So this morning we've been planning this for quite some time. We're really excited to have one of the missions that WestWay currently supports and has supported for a really long time. So as we kind of looked at what our summer schedule will look like, we booked Connie Wicks to come, and we're just going to share just some conversation with you about what she's doing, what her ministry looks like, because we want to be responsible to you, our church body. We know that you support us financially. We know that you support our missions financially. And this is a great opportunity to connect with one of them when she's here. So if you'll welcome Connie up to the front with me, that would be awesome. Well, before we begin, I'm just going to read Romans 10, 14 to 15. But how can they call on him to save them unless they believe in him? And how can they believe in him if they've never heard about him? And how can they hear about him unless someone tells them? And how will anyone go and tell them without being sent? That's why the scriptures say, how beautiful are the feet of messengers who bring good news. So, Connie, you have been a messenger that WestWay has supported for decades, at this point. For those of you who don't know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the ministry that you lead in South Africa?
Okay, morning, everyone. It's really good to be here with you today. I know many in the church knew both my parents, Stuart and Marilyn Cook, and WestWay was actually my mom's home church, starting out at Church at Bryant, then moving to WestWay. So the church here has actually supported our ministry since 1966. So it's a very, very long time and a long history with the church. My parents' lives were totally devoted to serving the Lord. My dad was actually from Wheatland, Wyoming, and he came to Platte Valley Bible College, and he was the first graduate of Platte Valley Bible College. And at the age of 18, he started preaching in the church at Lyman. And my mom joined him a few years later when they got married. And they grew the church in Lyman. I was looking at a newspaper article saying they had record attendance during the time and everything. And they really loved the church there. And then in about 1957, they were called to go to Casper, Wyoming, and start a new church there. So they went and planted a church there. And in about 1965, they were at a church camp, and there was a missionary, Al Hamilton, who was there as the missions person that week from South Africa. So both my parents ended up very, very convicted that whole week about needing to go to South Africa. So they no sooner got back from camp than they made plans, and in 1966 packed up everything, including me and my sister. I was 6 years old at the time. Kathy was 4 years old, and we went to the other side of the world. And it wasn't very easy for family here. In those days, it was reel-to-reel tapes. You had to book international calls, write email letters. But anyway, they ended up in Johannesburg. It's the largest city in South Africa. And church planted there, and they started everything that went with the church, Bible studies, encouraging people, mentoring, counseling, making new disciples during this time. We did come back for about a year and a half, and my dad taught for a semester at Platte Valley, and then went to Hayes College to get his master's degree. And then we went back and ended up in a different part of Johannesburg. The church that he had first planted was still continuing. And we ended up in a different area where he started up again with a new church in that area. And my parents were also people that always had an open house. So we always had someone or other staying with us. And we had a 4-bedroomed house, and it was very, very full with various people. So my mom decided she wanted to pray for a bigger house. And if anyone knew my mom, I think everyone that knew my mom knew she had like a direct line to heaven. You know, she was a real prayer warrior, and her prayers were always answered. And anyway, the Lord answered her prayer in giving us a place that had 40 bedrooms. So it was former single quarters of one of the mines in Joburg. So we moved there, and my dad decided, okay, that's great. He's going to start up a Bible college. It's going to be called Aletheia, which means truth in Greek. And he was going to start teaching and mentoring people in the Bible. Well, the Lord had different plans for them, because no sooner did they move there, then people would come and they say, you know, we have this person and they have this problem, they need a place to stay, or, you know, we have this homeless person, they need a place to stay. So these 40 bedrooms started filling up with various people with various needs. And we had to move out of this about 2 years later and ended up in an 80-bedroomed place. And this was on the edge of Hillbrow, which is one of the roughest areas in Joburg city centre. And this started a ministry that lasted about 27 years of inner city ministry. So it was a lot of counselling. We had church on Sundays, Bible studies, devotions every night, counselling people all the time. You had homeless, you had drug addicts, you had abused women, you had alcoholics, people coming into the country from Rhodesia at the time of the change there. So over the 27 years, we saw all sorts of things and dealt with all sorts of things. And it was really heavy counseling all the time. And at this time, by this time, obviously, my sister and I had grown up and got married, and I had moved with my husband and 4 sons at the time. We had 3 biological, 1 adopted. And we moved down to East London, which is about 10 hours away from Joburg. And we lived there for 9 years. We loved it. It was on the coast. The boys grew up doing water sports. It's just really nice, easygoing place to live. And then his business started going downhill, and things were getting worse and worse. And so we were really praying and asking the Lord what he wanted us to do, where he wanted us to go. But, you know, we wanted to stay on the coast. We didn't want to go anywhere else. And then I opened my Bible the one day and got the verse, I will put a ring in your nose and a bit in your mouth and lead you back to where you came from. And so we very reluctantly went back to Joburg. And within 2 weeks, we were just sucked back into the ministry there and doing ministry work, helping. The building was sold at this time, so that my dad could get out of this heavy, heavy counseling that they were doing all the time to concentrate on writing his books. And so the building was sold. We helped move all the people that were staying in the 80 rooms to different places and ended up in a big house. And shortly after this, then my parents decided they were going to move to Falvater, where they had a property that they had bought many years before, and my dad had spent 10 years building a house for them there, and it was meant to be like a retreat from the city for them. And so they decided to move up there permanently, so it would be quieter for my dad to write his books. And this is where my mom actually got involved with Letabo Kids Club, that many of you have heard of. It was a soup kitchen, and all these kids would come in the town from the township and come to the soup kitchen every week. And she soon decided, well, I can start telling these kids Bible stories when they're here. And so that's what she did. And before long, it changed from being soup that the kids were given to peanut butter and jam sandwiches and a glass of milk, which was a real treat for the kids, and they loved that more than the soup. And she would have 300 to 500 kids attend every Wednesday to Kids Club, and this is a ministry that carried on for many, many years. And in the meantime, in Joburg, we continued under the name of Aletheia, because we had become got a non-profit organization number. We could get donations, could get our tax exempt, that sort of thing. So we just continued under the Ministry of Mission to SA, but we were in Joburg, and our ministry also turned more to child ministry, and that's been our focus for 22 years, is ministering to children, teaching them about Jesus, planting the seeds in their lives, that they can have a biblical worldview and grow up to know Jesus. And hopefully what's taught to them while they're young will stay with them for the rest of their lives.
Perfect.
Was that enough?
That was good, but you forgot the most important thing. How did you and your family get to South Africa?
Okay, we were on an old freighter ship, so it wasn't a cruise ship. It was an old freighter ship. I think there was only about 8 paying passengers, and we were 28 days at sea with no land. I think we saw a spot of land one day that was very exciting, but can you imagine my poor mom trying to keep a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old entertained for 28 days at sea and keep us from falling overboard as well.
So what are the different aspects of the ministry? And because I know there's like Mission to South Africa, there's Aletheia Ministries. What are the different aspects of the ministry, and how do they function, and what do they do?
Yeah, so basically the two main aspects of the ministry is the ministry my mom was doing in Mulholland with Kids Club. And this is, they started out with kids, and they start out on the backs of their older siblings. So they're tiny babies when they start coming to Kids Club. And many of them have grown up, and now we have young men that are leading Kids Club that grew up in Kids Club. And they're leaders in the area. Godfrey, who's the main leader of Kids Club, he and a couple of young guys have actually started a church in the area. So they are leaders in that area in Kids Club. So that's a very big aspect in Mulholland. Unfortunately, we had to close due to COVID because we're having 300 to 500 kids. So, there's no ways to do social distancing, and because of restrictions, we closed it. But we are open. We've now opened up a Sunday Kids Club, and that's grown to about 120 children now. So it's growing steadily, and we're hoping now that all restrictions are gone that we can start up with Wednesdays again soon. And we do Bible studies on a Saturday. There's 2 groups, one for younger kids and one for the older youth. And these are normally guys that have grown up in Kids Club and just getting more in-depth studies on a Saturday. And those run from 20 to 40 kids. And then in Johannesburg, we are involved with 6 underprivileged daycare centers. So these are run by Christian ladies who just feel the importance of an early education for children that have been very disadvantaged and not had this in the past. So they want to give the kids a good education, and then we go in every day of the week, we go to a different one, and we do Bible stories there, and we also support them with food and anything else. There's a whole lot of different things that go with what's going on. And feeding is a big part of what we do in both places in many different ways.
Now, you were saying earlier today that your number gets passed around to different people for additional daycares, and you kind of shared a story. And I always surprise Connie with questions. This is just what I do. So I just thought that was a really great story. So your number gets passed around.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about kind of what you shared in that.
Yeah, so earlier this year, this lady contacted me because we have 4 daycare centers in Soweto and one in Bertram's, which is sort of Joburg City Center that we've been involved with for many years now. And this lady sent me a message, and she said, "Hi, I've got a daycare center and I need help." So I messaged her back and I said, well, we spread quite thin. I don't know how much help we can give you. What sort of help do you need? And she sent me this whole long list of things they need for the daycare, and food was one of them. And so I said, well, I don't know how much we can do, but we will come and we'll pray with you. So we went the one Thursday morning. We bought a bag of mealie meal. Mealie meal is like cornmeal, and it's the staple food over there. And the blacks will eat it 3 times a day sometimes. They'll have it as a porridge in the morning and thick, like it almost looks like mashed potatoes. They'll have that as the main part of their meal for lunch and supper if they have 3 meals a day. Sometimes they only have 1 or 2 meals a day. Anyway, so we took a mealie meal. So we went, and she has about 6 little kids, and they're 3 years old and under. So she's got real babies. So we prayed with her, and we said, okay, we'll come every week. We can't help you very much. We stretched quite thin, but we will come every week, and we will pray with you. So after a week or 2, we thought, okay, we'll start teaching some songs to the little kids. So here we are all jumping around and singing the active kids songs, and they're just staring at us with big eyes. And they now eventually, a couple of them are starting to do the actions with us as well. And we've now also started doing the Bible story with them. And we just find it very exciting because these kids have obviously never had this, and it's all very, very new to them. And we're starting with them from the time they're babies. So hopefully for the next 4 or 5 years until they go to school, they will be able to hear the gospel every single week. And this is very exciting for us.
So I think you just answered the question, but what aspect of your ministry do you enjoy the most?
Okay, obviously I enjoy the kids the most, and just working with the children, whether it's the children in Joburg that are 5 years and younger. They're just so fun and so special and so innocent, or going up to Kids Club in Farvater and being with all the kids there and just interacting with them, I think is the greatest thing to do, and I just love working with the children. An example of why they're such fun is Mornay was telling a Bible story, I think it was a couple years ago, about creation. So, obviously he was doing all the animals that God had created with all the sound effects and everything. And then he got to the 6th day. So he says to the kids, "What is missing?" Meaning man, obviously. So one little boy popped up, "A crocodile." When we have stories with angels in, then they think they're butterflies and things like that. But it's a lot of fun working with kids, and I really enjoyed that the most.
Yeah, one of the things that I really like about what's happening in South Africa, working with children in particular, is just that intergenerational piece. And that's something that's really important for us here at WestWay, is equipping parents and families to make disciples at home. And that's why we focus so much on kids. Yeah. I've heard Connie came to our home Thursday night for our small group and talked, and I heard her talk about it here earlier today. But you talked about how if we can teach kids the gospel young, it won't just change their lives, but it will change the shape of their nation. Yeah. And that's not just a South Africa thing. Yeah. I think it can be really easy for us to sort of lament the state of culture and lament the state of our nation and our world. And the keys to the gospel, the transforming power of Jesus Christ is going to make the difference. It's not going to be something else that makes a change. So to be able to connect in a ministry like this and to continue to support a ministry like this as a church, this is really important for us to be able to support what you guys are doing. What are some of the hardest parts of your ministry?
Well, I just think over the years, we often come up with very difficult situations in the ministry. We've dealt with people that have blind children or children that have physical disabilities, and just trying to help them, get the help they needed, because our hospitals are terrible, and sometimes they just can't even get to a hospital. So we've dealt with things like that, dealing with. I think Satan just attacks us all the time in so many different ways, and this year has really been a challenging year for us, not only personally with family issues, I think for each one of us, but also physically, and I think those things are very taxing. Before I left, I was saying to Katie and Helen, I really need you two to be well while I'm away, because they're carrying on with the ministry in Joburg. And just praying, okay, please just be okay. Neither one of you get sick. Every single week, it's been one thing after another between the one, Katie ending up in hospital the first week, Helen having a chest infection the second week, Katie's had a pink eye of all things, and they've just had one thing after another. And so I think we really get attacked by Satan. So I think we must be doing something right. But that's one of the most challenging parts, is just all these things that come up to try and derail us all the time.
Mm-hmm. So Connie, you were last here in 2019, and we've had there's obviously a lot's gone on with COVID and your mom's passing last year. What have been some particular, just thinking about the challenges of those two things? How has COVID impacted the ministry into your mom's passing? Like how are you doing in the midst of this? I really like what you said at the end, and this is another question I'm springing on her. I like what you said at the end, like you're a real person.
Yeah.
And it's very easy for us when we see mission updates or we hear Connie talking about these things, it can be easy for us to forget that you're a person.
Yeah.
You have kids, you have grandkids. How are you? Like, how are you doing?
Am I?
How are you doing?
I think I'm doing fine. Luckily, I think the Lord's given me a type of personality where I learn to be flexible. I learn to roll with the punches. I try and face whatever comes up against me. Obviously, sometimes it's not that easy. Last year was very difficult with my mom. Her Parkinson's had progressed to the point where we had to bring her down from the farm. I wanted her to stay in Falvata as long as possible, and I know she wanted to stay in Falvata as much as possible because her passion was the children and her passion was the work that she did. And when we brought her down to Joburg, she went downhill very quickly, and so we had from end of June to beginning of November just dealing with her, having her in our home, caring for her and being for her, and that was really, really hard. And even now we miss her a lot, but we know that she's with the Lord and with my dad and everything. And also during COVID, especially 2020, you know, our whole country went into a very, very hard lockdown from March for about 5 weeks. People couldn't go anywhere. Everyone had to stay at home. Only people allowed out were essential workers. We were luckily considered essential workers because of the food donations we were receiving and the distribution we did. But it was hard because we were feeding people and everything, but because we couldn't do the ministry and we couldn't gather, you know, we just really felt like our hands were really tied during this time, and it was really tough, and we were so happy once things were able to start up again, even in a limited way. But during this time, I've had for a while, I've had a WhatsApp group with all the daycare teachers on it and all of our team on it, and we just, I send out a devotional to them every day, so just to encourage them and help them. But it has been a challenging 2 years, but I think we've been coping, and I've been coping, and I'm doing fine.
Well, one of the things I talked with Pastor Joe about very quickly after, you know, you mentioned, how many grandkids do you have?
5, and 1 on the way.
Okay, that's awesome. So one of the things that we do here at WestWay, for grandparents in particular, is we have a grandparenting summit where we do a simulcast. So Joe and I are going to figure out a way to try and get you some content from that.
As long as it's not the middle of the night for me, just remember,
right, yep.
8 hour.
So Connie and I talk about once every couple months through that WhatsApp app. If you don't know what WhatsApp is, it's what everyone else uses around the world to communicate. So I contact with her, and usually every time I start that conversation, I have her remind me of what the time difference is. So how has God been speaking to you lately, kind of at this point in your ministry, at this point in your career as a missionary, kind of where you are, maybe where you are personally? How has God been speaking to you lately?
Well, I think the one main message I got, and especially last year, and it just continues up to now, was the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They're new every morning. Great is his faithfulness. And, you know, when my mom was there with us, and I would play hymns for her during the day, it was so often that song, Great is Thy Faithfulness, would come up. And, you know, I'd be writing a newsletter, and I'd hear that song in the background, and just that story, you know, just his mercies are new every morning, and every morning we wake up, we have a new day in which we can serve the Lord and do the best that we can do. And I think that is the main thing. You know, the Lord is always there no matter what's going on in your life. He is faithful. And, you know, I've really had to sometimes trust that he is faithful and be reminded of that.
So keeping with this kind of concept, like that you're a real person, Because I love that. I love that you had to remind us of that. How is your personal faith and walk with God being fed? Like, how do you like sort of maintain that relationship with God? What does that look like for you?
Okay, obviously, I make sure that I do my own personal devotions every single morning. And I wake up at 5 a.m. to do it because at night time I fall asleep doing it. I'm too tired by the end of the day. And if I don't get it done early in the morning before the craziness of the day, it's very difficult to try and fit it in. So I do my personal devotions, and I also try and encourage, our team members as well as the staff that work at the farm, encourage them with daily devotions as well. And then I do go to a local church. So when I'm in Joburg, not up at the farm or wherever, in Falvato, should I say, I go to a local church, a very nice Bible-based church, very similar to the church here, and lovely people. I'm part of the welcome team there, which I enjoy. And we're a small church. We were doing pretty well before COVID, but it's really changed a lot since COVID. But I really love the messages that we hear. And we did, the whole of last year, we did the Gospel of Mark, and they'll preach even just on one verse out of Mark at a time. Can you imagine the whole Gospel of Mark through a whole year? But that's what they
You're
tend
welcome.
to do.
We only took 3 months, so you're welcome.
So that really encourages me and uplifts me as well.
I love that you said, so spending time in Scripture, spending time with the gathered word, and this ought to sound familiar to all of us at WestWay, and then serving. Especially that last one, we might tend to think, well, Connie's a missionary, so she doesn't have to serve in the church because her life is serving, and I love that. I love that part of your discipleship is serving, even though that's what you do 24/7. It's still serving, and it's still something that's really important to you to serve in the local church. I know we talked about this a little earlier. So I've been on a number of short-term trips and served in different ways, and always going into those, kind of my mindset was like, I'm going to go and I'm going to help someone else learn. I'm going to help someone else become a disciple. I'm going to teach what it means to be a disciple to this other person, and they're going to gain knowledge. And every time I've come away from those, like, I always felt like I got more out of that interaction than anything that I had to offer. How have you been blessed by God through your ministry to other people?
I think, just especially like, say, with the teachers in the daycare centers and even my team, Getty and Helen, when we're discussing the Bible story that we're doing for the week and the lessons that can be learned from it, and they'll have questions that they may have about it or lessons that they learn about it, and just discussing with them and interacting with them, I think helps feed my faith as well. And often we'll get questions where you have to really look up to think, what do I feel about this, or how do I tell people about this, and what is my opinion? So I think I learn new things all the time as well.
So learning from people that you are supposed to be discipling, that's a reciprocal relationship.
Yes.
I think that's one of the really great things about our faith, and when we have this mindset of serving others, is also, like, we often ask this question, what am I going to get out of this? Which is a weird question for Christians to ask, because the real answer is we may not actually get something out of it. Like, that shouldn't be our motivation, yet we do. And I just think that's such a grace, because I imagine you grow in your discipleship by being around 3-year-olds who need peanut butter sandwiches.
It is. Yeah.
Even if it challenges it challenges your patience, probably.
And I'm glad I'm not a 24, every day of the week daycare teacher. I really, really admire them. A few hours every morning is enough for us.
Mm-hmm. You've also obviously faced some hardship because of the choices that you and your family have made over the last decades. What have been some of those hardships, and just about like being in the ministry? What have been some of the hardships that you've faced because of the way that you've dedicated your life to this particular thing, other than moving away from the coast, which I would love to do that. I would never do that. But what are some of the hardships that you and your family have faced because of the commitment that you've made to the Lord in your ministry and your mission?
Well, I think, people don't become missionaries to get rich. I'll just say that. So often financial hardships are a time where we really have our trust in the Lord tested, especially when it comes to the end of the month and you have debit orders coming off your account and there's no money in the account. We often find that we get tested in that way a lot. But just personally, I've got 4 sons, and there's just we've had a lot of personal issues in our family, which is a time where I really try to say, I'm praying for you, just trust the Lord in this situation to be able to work through it, to see healing in some cases, just mending relationships or building relationships. And, we just dealing with things in that way, I think is very trying at times.
Well, Buddy, I think this is a really good thing for us to hear, that as much as Connie's a real person, she has real issues and real issues with her family, just like every one of us do. And I think an example of just telling your kids you're praying for them and how can I pray, I think those things are really powerful. And these are good reminders for us as we think about how can we support the missions and the ministries more faithfully beyond just our financial giving, remembering that they face the same things that we do. Would be really
prayer support is very important.
Yeah, would be really helpful. Is there something that would make your life easier or more fulfilling overseas? Like, is there maybe a tangible thing, like something we can do, or kind of? And I know prayers. I don't want to say prayers intangible, because that's probably the most important thing. But is there something, as you think, like, boy, this would really make my life easier if?
Yeah, well, one thing, and I never like to ask for anything for us personally. It's very difficult for me to do, and I feel my life is very fulfilled. I'm grateful for what I have, and when I work with the people that I work with, I often go home and think, I can have butter and peanut butter on my sandwich, where there's some of the teachers that they say they have butter on their bread one day and peanut butter on their bread the next day to make it last through the month. So, I think we're very blessed in many ways. But something that's a real challenge at the moment is our power supply in the country. We've got a huge power crisis. And just this past week, we've went up to stage 6 of load shedding. Load shedding is where they turn off different areas for a certain amount of time every day. So it'll normally be about 2 hours you'll go off. And stage 1, you may go off once a day, and stage 2, 2 times a day for 2 hours. Well, you get up to stage 6, which they've had this past week, and you're going off like 3 times a day for 2 to 4 hours at a time. It can be very, very difficult to plan your day or to do anything, to work on your computer, to have Wi-Fi, to cook in supper, that sort of thing. And one thing we don't have is a generator, and I think it would really be great if we could get a generator. I think it would make our lives a lot easier in times when it's like this. But otherwise, we make do, and we're grateful for what we have, and we really feel blessed by the Lord in so many ways.
So, very similar question. What do you wish you could ask for from your supporters and from extended family?
Well, I think the big thing, and this is why I'm visiting here now, especially since my mom passed away last year, and a lot of people, the ministry started with my parents, and they were a lot of the church has been supporting her and my dad since 1966, 1967. And, I would just ask that we continue to be supported, even though my mom isn't there anymore and my dad isn't there anymore. The ministry is carrying on, and we're still doing what they were doing, and we're still, spreading the gospel. We're still working with the children, and if we lose any more support, I don't know how we would be able to carry on. So I think that's a big part of what we do. And also, just prayer support. We have 3 pastors up in Venda, which is far northern parts of South Africa, that we have been supporting with food for feeding projects for many, many years now. And Pastor Sam died in 2020 of COVID. His brother and mother died in the same week as him. And his wife is carrying on with the ministry in that area. And we try to send them a little bit of money every month to help buy food for the children and the people that they're feeding. They're in a very, very rural, very poor part of the country. We've helped them with water tanks in the past because there's no water in the area. People have to push wheelbarrows, a kilometer down the road to get water for their homes. So just support for them would be great as well.
This kind of ties into what I said a little bit earlier today. Our Connie is, they're not making disciples of Connie, and Stuart and Marilyn weren't making disciples of Stuart and Marilyn. So one of the things that our commitment is as a church body is, regardless of who's in charge of what's taking place in South Africa, our desire is to support them as much as we possibly can. Because I know that is a real challenge. We've talked about that a number of times, just with your mom having passed away, facing some different things from different churches, and we want to continue to come alongside them and support them. And then also think about, kind of as Connie thinks about what her next stage of her ministry and her life looks like, how can we come alongside them as a church and as a mission, and ensure that there is longevity beyond what we currently see. And this is something we're going to actually be talking about as a church at the beginning of 2023 is kind of where do we see God taking us as a church? Where do we see God? Where do you see God taking Aletheia Ministries, and how can we support that on the big picture? So you're getting ready to go home. You are. So what does the next week look like for you? And then 2 final questions, and your interrogation is over for the day.
Well, my cousin Pam is here to pick me up to take me back to Casper. And it'd be great if you meet Pam, because she's our forwarding agent. So she's the person on this side that you deal with. And she's taking me back to Casper. And tomorrow morning we're going to Cody, Wyoming, to visit cousins of my dad. And just have a couple of days visiting family. Then back down to Casper, doing a few things there, and then on Saturday we drive down to Wheatland, Wyoming. Wheatland was my dad's home church and hometown, and so we'll be in Wheatland next Sunday, and then I'll head down to Denver on Monday. Fly out, midnight flight. If there is a midnight flight, I'm on Delta, so we'll see how that goes. That's another point for prayer. I'm going to be flying back to Virginia and just spending 2 nights with my uncle and aunt in Virginia before I head home. And then on the 14th, I'll be flying home. So I'm really looking forward to that.
As you prepare to head back, what are you looking forward to?
I'm just looking forward to seeing everyone, seeing my family, seeing the team, being back at the daycare centers. I've really missed everyone, and I know they've missed me as well. So really looking forward to that. Another thing, I got a message this morning from Pinky from one of the daycare centers, and a little boy in the daycare died today. Asked how he died, and she just said he had problems with his large muscles and he couldn't walk. So I don't know what that means. You go to our government hospitals and they're not very good at explaining to people what actually is wrong. But, just pray for Pinky and Kanya Daycare and for the family of this little boy that died. It's really sad. He's probably about 4 or 5 years old.
Anything as a real person you're not looking forward to going back to?
My bookkeeping.
That's real.
That's bottom of my list. I was very stressed trying to get things ready for our financial year end, which is March, before I left, and getting everything on my computer. My computer bookkeeping system was saying, critical update needed, because my computer at home is very old. But since I've been here, I've been blessed with a new little laptop that has all the updates that I need. But I'll probably be 4 months behind in bookkeeping when I get back. And it's not my favorite thing to do. So I'm dreading that.
Well, I want to invite you after our 10:15 today. We'll have Connie and Pam just be up front here if you would just like to visit with them. I know they have information about how you can support them directly. We support Aletheia Christian Missions and South Africa, Mission to South Africa through our general fund giving, and I'll talk more about that here in a couple minutes. But if you want to minister and you want to help support them directly, there'll be some ways for them to talk to you about what that looks like after today. So if you have your communion element with you, I would encourage you to take that out. One of the things that we do in our small group on Thursday nights, when I remember, and that's key, when I remember we have communion together. And just as I was thinking about communion today and how this brings unity with Christians and in remembering what Jesus has done for us, just what an incredible opportunity that we have to celebrate communion with someone from the other side of the world. And I don't know about you, but when I think of South Africa, like it's the other side of the world to me. I think there are so many things that separate us from the rest of the world. There are so many things that Connie and I don't have in common. Because of where she lives and because of where I live and what her context is and what my context is. And I think about all of the people that have become followers of Christ through the ministry of Connie and Stuart and Marilyn and your whole family and all of your team. There are so many things that separate us, and yet the strangest thing is that we actually, as Christians, we have more in common with someone who is going to become a Christian tomorrow through Aletheia International Ministries, through Mission to South Africa. We have more in common with that person than we do with someone who lives down the street from us who's not a believer, and maybe we just like the same football team, right? We have more in common with that person because of their relationship with Christ and our relationship with Christ. That is such an incredible unifier for us. To know that we worship the same Lord. And that little boy or that little girl who's going to come to Christ tomorrow in South Africa, we worship the same Lord. And when we celebrate communion together, that's what we're celebrating. We're remembering what Jesus has done for us. And we are participating in unity with other believers all around the world. So if you will take out your bread. This is Christ's body that's broken and given for you. And then this cup represents Christ's blood, which is poured out for you. Will you pray with me? Father, I'm so thankful that we have the opportunity to spend this time with Connie today. I ask that her trip here has been fruitful. I ask that she will leave the U.S. encouraged and positive, even though she has 4 months of bookkeeping to do. She talked earlier about your steadfast love for her. And as as she's faced and her family has faced and the ministry there has faced so many challenges and hardships over the past couple years, I just pray, God, that they would cling to your steadfast love. Pray for this family who's lost this little child, that they would know of your steadfast love, that the things that Connie's team would say to a parent or to a family member would proclaim you, would help them see you at work even in the midst of this incredible challenge today. We pray for safe travel. I pray that we, God, would search our own hearts and think how we might continue to support what Connie and her team are doing in South Africa. And in the midst of all of that, help us to remember that it's not about them. It's not about us. It's about you, and it's about what you're accomplishing. And we just get to be your hands and your feet. And like the word says, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. So help us to be willing to be goers, to be supporters, and to be doers of your word. And it's in your Son's name we pray. Amen. Will you thank Connie for being here with me this morning?
And I do have some photos with magnets on out front, so if you want to take a photo so you can remember to pray for us, that'll be great.
Would you stand with us one more time?
As we wait, seek your face. Come and make your throne upon our praise. Here in this place, have your way. The moment that we see you, we are changed. Show us your glory. Show us your glory. In wonder and surrender we fall down. Show us your glory. Show us your glory. Let every burning heart be holy ground. Holy ground. Here, not by power, not by might, but only by the cross we come alive. Here, we're undone, overcome by heaven's love revealed before our eyes. Show us your glory. Show us your glory. In wonder fear bow here now. Jesus, you change everything. Lives healed, hope found here now. Jesus, you change everything. Chains fall, fear bow here now. Jesus, you change everything. Lives healed, hope found here now. Jesus, you change everything. You change everything. Jesus, you change everything. Chains fall, fear bow here now. Jesus, you change everything. Lives healed, hope found here now. Jesus, you change everything. Show us your glory, show us your glory. In wonder and surrender we fall down. Show us your glory, show us your glory. Let every burning heart be holy ground.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm just going to read Romans 10, 14, and 15 one more time. But how can they call on him to save them unless they believe in him? And how can they believe in him if they've never heard about him? And how can they hear about him unless someone tells them? And how will anyone go and tell them without being sent? That is why the scriptures say, how beautiful are the feet of the messengers who bring good news. One of the ways that we can support Connie and our other missions is through just your financial generosity. As I said a moment ago, a portion of all of our giving goes directly to support the missions. So we encourage you to be generous in that. So when you give money here of your generosity, that goes in part to the missions that we support. We encourage you to do that. We also encourage you to participate in other ways. This year, over the past 6 or 7 weeks, we have been amazingly blessed to have 3 of our supported missions here on site on Sunday morning. And when we have those opportunities, we try and do things. We try and get them into small groups as much as we're able. We have things on Sunday morning for them. We just encourage you to come and participate in that, because these are the people that we support. Connie talked about being in relationship, and relationship is more than just finances. Relationship is actual relationship. I know Connie would love to share her email address with you. As I said, I have her on WhatsApp, so we can communicate. And she would love to be able to do that, for you to be an integral part of what is happening there in South Africa. So I'm going to dismiss you in a second, but here, I want you guys to all hold up your hands for a second, just like this. I want you to see how many digits you have on your hands. Can we agree that having the same number of digits on our hands 1 week from today will be a good thing? Don't do anything tonight or tomorrow that will eliminate a finger. Okay? Let's pray. God, we're so thankful for who you are. We're thankful for the opportunity that we have to gather. We're thankful for the opportunity that we have to hear about one of the missions that we support and the work that you're doing. I pray that we will leave here encouraged today. that we will be filled with the desire to participate in your kingdom work. And it's in your Son's name we pray. Amen. See you next week.